It's back again. It was quiet for so long. It's kind of was forgotten about, and now here it is. CBS posted a video yesterday. Uh, Based on face reactions, it seems like it's between the Bills and the Chiefs. So, which leads us to this: would you overpay for DeAndre Hopkins if it would keep him away from the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, it's already been said that DeAndre Hopkins is now looking for a raise. So, monetary wise, I don't think we need to worry about that. It's the draft picks that we have to worry about. It's the compensation. So, are we going to have to give up a player? Are we going to have to give up more than a third round pick? Any more than a 2024 third round pick is what I'm leaning towards,
Mhm.
because we have we're probably going to get a third round comp pick, so that, you know, replaces each other. But that's my take.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jenna. I think, like you said, I think maybe that they have a contract worked out somewhere, whether it's the Chiefs or the Bills. But I think they're just trying. Maybe it's like a back and forth thing of how much draft capital we'll have to give up for each team. So, I mean, if it's looking like he's not looking for a pay raise, then if he's looking to, decrease the salary a little bit, why not go for it? You know what I'm saying? Keep him away from one of our rivals. And
I
I think
did see something this
have to
morning.
offer him like a third plus a fourth. I say go ahead and do it.
Hmm.
Makes a
I
lot of
seen
sense for our
something.
offense.
I seen something this morning on Pro Football Talk that he actually deleted that tweet. That
Good.
Yeah,
I don't want to
he
raise
did,
tweet.
because I went to look at my response to it, which my response is still up, but his tweet had been, it says tweet deleted by author. And just to kind of chime in, I mean, it really depends, Paul, what you constitute as an overpay. Like, I mean, if you're swapping first with Arizona, they trade you their second and D Hop, I would probably do that. If they want a third too, that might be a little uncomfortable. But if you're still talking D Hop, like, you'll still be able to get D Hop, you'll still be able to add a linebacker high in the second round. I mean, even if Jack Campbell and Simpson are off the board, you should still be able to get Henley or Drew Sanders as well at that spot at Arizona's pick. And you still have your second rounder, which can be used on offensive tackle. And then you would have only 3 more picks in the draft. But if you're getting D Hop and filling a need at middle linebacker, I probably would do it, even if it's a little uncomfortable. Compensation wise, you just look at some of the Bills' recent third round picks, and I mean, they've not that they've thrown them away or flushed them down the toilet, but you look at Zach Moss, Spencer Brown, Terrell Bernard. Not like Bean has knocked them out of the park recently. So if you can do without a third round pick this year and it equals D Hop, I think it's going to be more impactful, because just based on the recent third round picks, we haven't been getting at least impact year one. I mean, Terrell Bernard can still be fine, but his rookie year, he wasn't, a quality third round pick. So, I mean, if you're going to go with that formula, you're going to get much more impact trading your third round pick for D Hop. So I would do it.
And then you got to factor in too, Ben, that today we re-signed AJ Klein.
Yeah,
So
as well.
More depth at linebacker too. So like, is it really? I mean, are we really going to draft a linebacker high? Like, could we wait to like the third, like fourth, fifth rounds, or will they just go ahead and keep building onto that position?
That AJ Klein signing today definitely helps a lot. Like, kind of paves the path a little bit way as we head into the draft. And obviously, we're still talking DeAndre Hopkins, and it kind of paints out the picture just a little bit. There's still a couple, like, look at it as like a puzzle, like 100-piece puzzle. We have like 90 pieces of the puzzle left, or maybe 85 of the pieces left. We're still figuring out the other 10, 15 pieces of the puzzle, and then is DeAndre Hopkins the last 5 pieces of that puzzle? And I think getting a DeAndre Hopkins brings Buffalo maybe a solid 6 receivers this season. That's a solid 6 receivers. I think you could say you get DeAndre Hopkins, the Bills should have one of the best receiver rooms in football. I mean,
100%.
maybe they give away Gabe Davis in that trade, maybe not. I mean, I wouldn't give away Gabe Davis in a trade for DeAndre Hopkins.
I would give away Davis over Shakir though. If a
Oh.
team is
100%.
asking about one of our young receivers, I'm not trading Shakir. Shakir,
Oh,
I
no.
think, has a better skill set. He's got more time left on his contract. I'm keeping Shakir. But
100%.
I mean, if we could keep Davis, I'm all for trading Davis. But if another team is asking about one of our receivers, like Shakir is the one guy I'm saying no way on.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'm
I
saying
don't
that
think other teams know about Shakir as much as we do right now.
right.
Yeah. Well, they will next year.
Yeah,
Oh, they will.
they will.
How about
So-
trading Ed Oliver in a package?
Oh yeah, trading
I
it
mean,
out.
I would do it. He's the one guy I would send out.
Heck
You
yeah.
know, we're saving $10 million in cap space.
You could replace him in the draft easily with the guy Texas Snacks, or you get the base defensive tackle.
Yeah,
Clark-
or if you want to add more size, you get Siaka Ika in
Yeah,
there too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely. I
there's a
think
lot of this
I
draft.
mean, if the Bills somehow are able to get rid of Ed Oliver, trade for D Hop, draft Ika and Drew Sanders, like that's gonna be one of the most insane hauls ever. Like,
100%.
yeah, you could right tackle might be an issue still. I mean, but still, you could. I mean, you look at the right tackle position too. Interestingly enough, like all the tackles, pretty much besides Darnell Wright, played left tackle. So if you're trying to look for a right tackle, I don't know if that's really a pick you should be using as a premium pick, because I think the only one who's really worthy of that pick would be Darnell Wright, just because like he's an actual right tackle. But I mean, Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson, like they all played left tackle. So did Anton Harrison, and Harrison's got shorter arms too. And another thing, if you're looking at tackles out of Oklahoma, I would look at Harrison's teammate Morris. He was the right tackle there, and was a former 5-star recruit. So,
right.
I mean, that's my argument for not taking a tackle, because you're not even going to be drafting a right tackle, and that's a position you need. It's right tackle.
Right.
We'll get into more drafts later, but sticking on the D-Hop conversation, what does D-Hop bring to the Bills offense if he can play a full healthy 17 games?
I mean, I'd say probably about anywhere between 11 to probably 1,500 yards is probably what you'll probably get out of him for a full season. Probably anywhere between like 8 to even as many as 12 plus touchdowns. Like, I mean, I think if you get a guy like D-Hop, he's a perfect red zone target for Josh. And I think Diggs is only going to get better too. So, I mean, I think the sky's the limit if you have D-Hop.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I feel like if you get D-Hop on this team, you will have 1,200 between 1,200 1,500 yard receivers on your team.
Yeah, and think about how. Yeah, and think about the cornerbacks that are in this division. We have Jalen Ramsey now on the Dolphins, and
that's a great point.
If you have a press man receiver like him, then you're gonna want a receiver who's able to. Did I say press man receiver? I said press man corner. If you have a press man corner like him, you're gonna want a receiver who has range and the catching ability to go like outside of the normal, frame that a receiver will catch her.
Yeah, 100%.
You got is it DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner.
Yeah. And then you got a couple corners that, I mean, the Patriots, they always load up on corner, and they always find on their defensive end, on their defensive back front. So like they'll find somebody to.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of D-Hop, I'm trying to remember what year it was. Was it maybe 2018 or 2017? But I saw a stat the other day where like D-Hop did not have a single drop one of his seasons.
Wow.
Like it was like an old stat. I'm like, it's a foreshadowing, but like talk about like amazing hands, and just like anytime like you throw him the ball, like he can make a contested catch. I mean, we saw him. He mossed 3 all-pro defenders on one play.
Yeah.
I mean, just unreal talent. Anytime, you throw him the ball, he could moss you, he can go up. He's got amazing one-handed ability. I mean,
Yeah.
he still has it. Last year I think he missed 7 games in his 8 games he played or whatever. He still had 800 yards and 7 or so touchdowns. I mean, his first 2 games back, he caught over he almost caught, I think the first game it was like 13 receptions. The second one was like 10, but like his first game back, he caught a dozen receptions after not playing in over a year because I
Yeah.
mean, he had that injury which ended his 21 season, and then he started the 22 season on the suspension. So, I mean, that's another thing you have to keep an account for D-Hop. Like, he's basically spent 2 years since you got a full season of D-Hop. So he's gonna have a little bit of chip on his shoulder too, and he's gonna want to come out there and perform because like he didn't get to start last season and he didn't get to end the season before. And if you guys go and look at I don't know if you remember McAfee's interview, but like he even said like they were undefeated before he got hurt in Arizona, or they were 8-1 or whatever. Like they basically like fell off their offense once D-Hop got hurt. And if you had a player like that, the Buffalo's offense or the like number 2 offense of football last year, like good night.
Yeah.
Oh, good night.
It has me
Like,
excited.
kind of to like Jenna's point.
Man, if this were to happen.
Oh yeah, kind of to like Jenna's point. You bring D-Hop, it's going to be a matchup nightmare. I mean, you have Diggs on one end and you have Hopkins at the other. I mean, kind of like you're going to play Miami. Say we get Miami week 2 like we did last year. Who do you put on Ramsey? Like, who does Ramsey play?
Right.
Like, does Ramsey go to the number 2 and play against Hopkins because he always gets burned against Diggs? Or does he play against Diggs?
Well, doesn't Diggs also own Xavier Howard? So that's going to be a pretty bad option for Miami either way.
Think about this.
I was going to say in that situation too, you could always put Diggs in the slot as well.
That's what I was
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tommy, because you can just make like D-Hop the X. If you still have Gabe, he could be the Y, and you could like you don't have to like Diggs doesn't have to stay in the slot, but I mean you could basically just move him around. I mean, or what about even Davis in the slot?
Oh wow.
Have we seen Davis in the slot?
Well, no, we haven't. I don't think so.
Put anyone in the slot. Put Knox in the slot too.
I know, right? I mean, it's just so many things that Dorsey that if he's capable of can run. There's so many.
100%. 100%.
He just needs to get his act together and make it right if we do end up trading for D-Hop. Needs to make.
I think so, especially being in his second year. He's going to be forced to reevaluate how he approached last season.
Yeah, but it's not even just a reevaluation. Like it's. I mean, you also have to look at like how many injuries we had. Like we lost Gabe Davis hurt his ankle week 2. So I mean week 2 we were missing receivers. Then Jamison Crowder broke his ankle. And I mean, McKenzie had a concussion. The offensive line was like a train wreck throughout the season, like no continuity, injuries throughout. Then Josh had the UCL injury. I mean, then you had, the stretch where they couldn't practice because of the blizzards and everything. I mean, it was just a really weird season. I mean, they still were able to win 13 games. They'd have statistically the second, best offensive football. So, I mean, I guess compared to what they had, there may not have been as much window dressing overall, but like, I think you still got to look at it objectively and be like, they still had a great season where they put up points. First year, offensive coordinator and play caller. So now you're kind of looking to see how they can build off that going into next year.
Right.
Because even if you remember Brian Dable's first year, and yes, I know there's entirely different circumstances, but still, like, I mean, it took Dable a couple of years to kind of find his groove. I mean, and I'm not saying we should give Dorsey a couple of years to just mess up, but I mean, I think his second year, I mean, they got a lot of people, consultants and guys, Shula and Brady, who've also been offensive coordinators. So I'm not as low on Dorsey as others are.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, if you
look at moments where I've criticized him, but throughout this offseason, I've really thought about how he can definitely improve.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think he's going to be as inconsistent in his second year.
Yep.
I mean, look at what Dable did in his first season. He
Right.
basically led us to the playoffs in his first season with what, Tyrod Taylor? And,
Actually, no, that was Rick Dennison.
Yeah, that was
And then
Denver.
Rick
that was Rick
Dennison got
Dennison.
fired. And then Dable's first year, Nathan Peterman was a starting quarterback because it was Josh's rookie year. So
mhm. So, would you take a wide receiver in this draft if you get D-Hop? Do you like completely eliminate wide receiver from the draft board?
I think wide receiver is going to be a necessity either way, because even if you do add in D-Hop, you got Davis with 1 year left on his contract. Diggs is going to be 30 in the fall. D-Hop is, I think, 31. So, I mean, just because of Davis's contract, the other two guys getting older, I mean, there's question marks. You do have Shakir, but even Sherfield has 1 year on his deal. Hardy only has another year after this deal. So, I mean, you really, in 2-3 years, you could really have no one other than maybe Shakir out of this current receiving
Right.
room. So I think at the very least, you got to at least take one in the 4th, 5th round if you don't, plan on drafting one early.
I
Yeah,
agree.
the thing that I struggle with, sorry, Tommy.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead, Jenna.
The thing that I struggle with is if we get D-Hop and we keep Davis on the roster, we're gonna have 6 receivers. And
Mhm.
how many do we want to keep on the roster if not having a other
That's-
receiver on the practice squad?
Right.
Yeah, and I guess you gotta just kind of play probably like the Hodgins game, right? And hope you can keep a guy on a practice squad to make it work or something like that. Or in that situation, you might just trade Gabe, right? I mean, just because of how full the room is. That's if you draft someone. But I
Right.
mean, otherwise, you can just let Gabe play out his contract year, and you can just keep it the current room with Gabe and D-Hop. And then even if Gabe walks, I mean, you could still use your 1st round selection on wide receiver next year.
Oh, and the class is way
Trade
better.
up for Marvin
Yep.
Harrison.
Yeah.
Trade up for Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, like even if
Or if you want a 6'7" receiver who could run a 4.4, I mean,
Yeah.
you can also do that in next year's class. So, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do.
I feel like if you get D-Hop, I feel like just don't. I don't feel like they need to get a receiver. I feel like there's other needs they could take, like offensive line,
Yeah.
maybe
Defensive line too, I think. You got defensive tackle.
a defensive tackle, maybe another defensive back, because I know they like their defensive backs too. So, because Trey White's getting older too, so
It could also benefit on safety.
yeah. Oh yes, safety as well. But yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't be. I mean, yeah, it would be nice to draft another receiver, but I don't think it's quite a need if they get D-Hop.
Right, because you
Yeah,
have
I agree.
room.
I don't want to run the risk of drafting a receiver, having to put him on a practice squad, and then he gets scooped up by the Giants.
Yeah, Pooh,
Right.
Shaw, like Hodge. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
But would anyone be upset like if Trent Sherfield is a camp cut if you draft like a receiver in the 3rd round? Like, were you really hoping so much that Trent Sherfield makes this roster? Like, I think Sherfield, he has a nice skill set, and I mean, I'm excited for what he might be able to do, but I mean, they didn't sign him long term. He's not,
No.
I don't think he's anything against the cap. So, I mean, even if you draft someone, I mean, the one odd man out, I mean, it could be one of these, free agent signings we made.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't spend much money on Hardy, so I mean,
Yeah, I think Hardy's a little bit more on the cap than Sherfield, and he has 2 years versus him. But I think either of them are pretty inexpensive as far as getting rid of.